is we're going to be going over our science journal, which is also known as your composition notebook, but starting today, it is going to be your science journal because we're going to make it into a science journal. So what you're going to start out with is a packet that looks like this. And so here we have a bunch of little handouts that we're going to be gluing into our journal, including the page. This is kind of like your front page, and this tells you what I'm going to be looking for when I grade it. So I'm going to go over that towards the end of this video. And then we have our 2 pages for our table of contents. And then we also have some accountable writing sentence stems that we're going to be using throughout the year that we're going to put at the back of our journal. And we have our test log where we're going to be writing in our test grades whenever we take a quiz, a test, or we turn in a project. So I've mentioned this several times. You need to have a composition notebook that has enough pages. That's really, really important. So if you notice here, it says 100 sheets or 200 pages. It turns out that a sheet is basically front and back. This is a sheet. And then a page, this is one page, and then on the back is a different page. I learned this the hard way, but you need to have a journal that has at least 100 sheets. And the reason for this is because I don't want you to run out of space, part of the way through the year. Like we're, in the third 9 weeks and you're like, ma'am, I don't have any more pages. And that's going to be bad. You're going to have to buy a whole other journal, and then you're going to have 2 journals, and that's annoying. Wide ruled or college ruled does not matter to me. Some people have even brought in the journals that have grid paper. That's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever you prefer to write in. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the gluing. So I've already done mine, which is just an example one. And anytime you want to look at my journal, just ask me for it and you can get it. Usually I have it sitting right behind slow-mo. And sometimes, you don't really have to ask me for it. Just go ahead and grab it. As long as you put it back before you leave class, I'm cool. Okay, so you can borrow my journal anytime. That means if you're absent and you need to copy the notes, you can go and grab my journal. Okay, anytime you need it, it's there for you. The reason why I keep a journal is for you, so that you can use it anytime that you need to. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Inside of our journal, the very first page is the rubric, basically, that I use to grade. So I want you to go ahead and glue this in right here. And then on the cover, we are going to be putting our test log right here. So our test log is going to be used every time we take a quiz or a test, or we turn in a project and you get your grade back for that. Quizzes, depending on the quiz, sometimes they'll be multiple choice, so we'll do them on Quizdom and you'll get your grade right away. Tests are always multiple choice, and so you'll get the grade on Quizdom right away also. Projects, I usually try to grade them that day, so you'll get your grade back pretty quick also. So what you're going to do is you're going to write the name of the quiz or the name of the test here, or the name of the project here. So usually the tests are going to be test 1.1. If it's the first 9 weeks, first test, 1.1. If it's the second test of the first 9 weeks, it's 1.2. Same thing for this one. This would be 2.1, 2.2, and so on. And 3.1, 3.2. The quiz will usually have a title like Cell Organelle Quiz or something like that. And then over here, you're going to write the topic, like what topics were on that test. For example, our very first test is going to have probably safety, tools, measurement, and scientific method. So you would write those topics here, and I'm going to have them on the board. Every day we take a test, I write down what topics they are. So basically, you're just copying this section from the board. And then you're going to write your grade here. If you want to do a retest, you have to come talk to me. You have to fill out a paper that gets signed by your parents. You have to write down what you have done to help improve your grade on the retest. And the retest is not going to be easier than the actual test. The retest is probably going to be an open-ended test. In other words, kind of like essay questions. Okay, just to let you know, I'm just telling you the truth. That's what it's going to be like. So after we take a test, you always take out your test log and you write down, you fill this in. Now, are we going to have 7 every 9 weeks? No, but I made sure that I put in enough spaces to where you will definitely have enough spaces for everything that we're going to be doing that 9 weeks. Okay, so this is what I'm going to be expecting you to fill this out every time we have a quiz or a test, and you're going to write down your grade and everything. And I'm going to be looking for this when I grade your journal. So then here's your cover page. And I want your name here. Just like on the test log, it has a space for your name. So you're going to fill that in there. It has my name here and the room number just in case it gets misplaced. Although this should not leave the classroom. You are free to take it home if you want to, but it's your responsibility to bring it back. Like maybe you want to study or you need to catch up on something. That's fine also. But it is supposed to stay in the classroom, and I have boxes for that in the classroom. So this is the stuff that I'm going to be looking for when I grade your journal. So let's go through that. Let's go ahead and go through that really quick. I want neatness and organization. That means, you know, papers aren't torn or falling out or anything like that. That stuff is in an organized fashion. We're going to be filling it in as we go along, and so the stuff should be in the order that we cover it. So in other words, you shouldn't be writing notes at the very front of the journal and then the next day you're writing notes at the very back of the journal. It should be organized in a timeline kind of fashion. Your notes should be complete. In other words, sometimes I'll give you notes where you have to fill stuff in, and it should be filled in. And we'll be doing that together. And if you, for some reason, don't have it filled in, just check YouTube, right? The table of contents should be complete, which I'll be going over that next because it's on the next page. Your page numbers should be in your journal and on the table of contents. I'll talk about that too. And then you should be writing your objectives every day, the entire objective. So the objective usually has a sentence, and then it has the agenda 1, 2, 3, 4 underneath that. You need to be writing both of those sections. So the objective and the agenda need to be copied down every day. Wise use of glue. This means not too much glue or not too little glue. If you are using too much glue, your pages will actually stick together, and it's going to be really hard to read your notes when the pages are stuck together. You need to make sure that you're using enough glue, though, so that the pages aren't falling out, which is the next thing. A lot of people, or a few people every now and then, will like say, oh, I'll just glue this in later, and they just stick it inside their journal, and they end up losing notes because they fall out because they were being lazy and they didn't glue them in as soon as we finished with the notes. So make sure that there aren't any pages falling out. I should be able to pick up your journal and shake it and nothing falls out, okay? Complete warm-ups. We will have warm-ups most days depending on what we're doing that day. If we're doing a lab and we're going to be really busy that day, we might not have a warm-up that day. But the warm-up has to be complete, okay? So don't just glue in empty warm-ups in your journal that you didn't actually do, okay? Do not skip pages. Usually the people that skip pages, like they don't like to write on the back or something like that, they end up running out of pages by the end of the year. And that's bad because then you have to buy another journal or it's going to be out of order or something like that. So no skipping pages. We use the front and the back sequentially. And then a completed test log, which is the facing page. This page right here is your test log that you need to be filling in. And so this is where I'm going to be writing your grade, and I'm going to grade it. It's going to be a test grade every 9 weeks, and I'll grade it. Usually the day that you take the 9 weeks test is when I grade your journal, or I'll grade it like a day or two before that. So each of these things is 10 points. So let's say that you did not write your page numbers. I'm going to circle that. And you skipped some pages, I'm going to circle that. And since they're 10 points each, that's 20 points off, so you have an 80 now. Okay? So be careful with that. Also, if I circle something, fix it for the next 9 weeks, because then, like, let's say you didn't have your page numbers written down, and then you realize that and you fix it, well, then I won't take off the points the next 9 weeks. They're going to, you know, I'm going to end up having to take more points off that 9 weeks, another 10 points, because you still didn't fix your page numbers. Okay, so that's kind of like a heads up. I'm telling you why I took off those points so that you can fix it. That way the next 9 weeks, hopefully you get 100. Okay. On the next page, we have our table of contents. So here we have 26 topics on one page, and then on the next page we have 52, up to 52. Are we going to use all of these? No, definitely not. Okay, but I put enough so that if we need to go a little further, we'll have enough space, plenty of space. Last year we went, I'm going to show you mine from last year, so we'll figure out where we went up to. It was something like in the 30s, I think. So here, every time we have a new topic, I'm going to have it up on the board and we're going to write it down. Like one of our first topics is going to be safety, and you're going to write down the page number that you are gluing those notes into or writing those notes into. And so you'll have it all filled in with the page numbers, okay? And I'll show you that in my old journal. Then at the very back of our journal, we're going to have our accountable writing and our accountable talking page. Sometimes I'll have you read something about science and then I'll have you write about it. And so this is just something that'll help you write. You can write predictions, you can write opinions, you can ask a question, or you can make a comment, okay? So this is something you can write about or something that you can use to discuss with someone else. So these are just sentence stems. This is kind of like a cheat sheet. This is going to help you out, okay? And then we're also going to have an envelope at the back of your journal. And so this is going to be for anything that we need to save back here. Sometimes we'll start on stuff and we don't have time to finish and we're going to finish the next day. So I tell you, okay, everybody put your parts in your envelope at the back of your journal. So you'll stick your parts in here. You'll seal it closed right with the little brad, and it'll be ready for you for the next day so that you don't lose any of your pieces. Okay, so this is your envelope at the back of your journal. You need to make sure that you keep closing it so that your little pieces do not fall out. And then also I'm going to have rubber bands for you guys, and we're going to hole punch the back of our journal, and we tie a little rubber band around it. And this is really useful, especially when it starts to get really thick. It holds your journal closed, okay? I do not want you playing with this. This is not a toy. And the more that you play with it, I will hear you playing with it. The more that you play with it, the bigger chance that it's going to tear, okay? And so please don't do that. This is going to be something that we're going to be using, and it's going to be helping us out a lot later on, especially when it gets really thick. For example, my journal from last year. So here is my journal, and I really like it because it has dinosaurs. And so this is the journal that I kept that looks pretty much exactly like my students' journals from last year. The only thing that's different between my journal and your journal is going to be the objectives. I do not copy the objectives every day. You will be writing them down in your journal. I write the objectives down on the board. Okay, so I don't copy mine into here. I also do not glue in the warm-ups. You will be gluing in the warm-ups. So you're pretty much going to fill up the whole journal. You'll notice in mine, I have some pages that I didn't fill in, but you will use pretty much almost all of the pages, okay? So again, remember that it needs to have at least 100 sheets and 200 pages, okay? So let's look at my journal from last year. So this is a little bit different because I'm having you do it differently this year, the order of the pages in the front, but this is just an example, okay? So here is the inside of my journal. So this is a little different this year, and then I have my table of contents here. So notice we went up to 39. Okay, that's how many topics we did last year. It might do probably a little fewer because we're not covering organic compounds and some stuff and work this year because that's changed in the Texas standards. But what I want to point out here is notice how I wrote the title, and then I also wrote down the page numbers of where those notes start. So if I need to find anything, like I need to go to my notes on cells, I know it's on page 24, and I have all of my pages numbered down at the bottom. So I can go directly to that page, bam, here's my notes on cells, what is cell theory, and so on. Okay, so that's what the page numbers are for. This is especially helpful when we do reviews for tests. You have a question on a review that you need to fill out, and you are able to go straight to that section. So what I want to do next is show you a little bit about what the inside of the journal looks like. And here I wrote down the first couple of objectives with my students last year. And so this is what your objective is typically going to look like. It's going to have the date, and then we have a sentence where it says we will, and then what we're doing that day, and then our actual agenda for that day. And here's the next one. I only did a couple of these because you guys are going to be writing down all the objectives every day. I don't. You guys glue in the warm-ups every day. I don't. I just put in the notes. And so then here on the side, you'll notice that I put these little dividers for wherever the 9 weeks starts. So we have 4 here for the 4 9 weeks. So here, this is like the first notes that we did for the first 9 weeks. And so some stuff has like little flaps, and we write stuff down underneath it. For some reason, I guess I didn't have time to copy this while you guys were working on it, or while my students were working on it from last year. And sometimes we'll just glue stuff in like this. Sometimes I'll have you fold stuff so that way it takes up a little bit less space and that sort of thing. I think that was one of the warm-ups. And so here I put some post-it notes to remind me about stuff. But this is just kind of an idea of what we do in class. Okay? So this is what your notes will end up looking like. I like to make them colorful so that you kind of know where stuff is at. Like I'll tell you, oh, the answers for this are in the green one or the pink one or whatever. But I try to make it a little bit interesting. And then sometimes we'll even cut stuff out of your textbook because our textbooks are consumable, and we'll glue it into our journal so that you have nice, pretty colored pictures and things like that. Okay. And then last year we also had an envelope at the back, but it was not a fancy one like the one you're going to get this year. And so here was our envelope for last year, and you'll see the rubber band here. So a little bit different from what you're going to be doing this year, but pretty much the same. Okay. If you have any questions or anything, or you want to look at my journal, remember it's always sitting next to Slow-Mo unless I'm actually actively using it. But just go ahead and pick it up and then return it before you leave class. Or if I have it, you can always just ask me for it. And as long as I'm not using it or nobody else is using it, you can borrow my journal. Okay. I will see you in class. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for visiting Slow-Mo's YouTube channel. Look for us on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. And don't forget to like and subscribe.